Here, the 24th. Tough day. Definitely a tough day. They're having this memorial for Brody Stevens tonight at the Comedy Store. And unfortunately, I'm in New York and I can't be there. And crushed that I can't be there and say all the things I would have liked to have said, which really is the strange thing about when somebody dies. Do you ever notice when somebody dies, then you somehow immediately know emotionally exactly what you wished you would have said to the person? It's really weird. But I kind of get it because that's a heavy thing to do to somebody. Like, what would I say to this person if I knew they were going to die tomorrow? If you just fucking hit them with that while they're sitting there eating a fucking Cobb salad, they're going to be looking at you like, whoa, dude, hey, let's try to keep it light here, okay? But that fucking guy, my God, that guy made me laugh. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. And it was the way, like, nobody ever made me laugh that hard the way he made me laugh. It was completely 100% just a unique sense of humor. Just really, you know what's funny is I've been talking to all of these comics about him over the last couple of days here, and we're all like quoting his jokes. And it's like, if you don't know Brody, it's kind of like you kind of have to know him, and you kind of had to be familiar with his act to understand, because it was his fucking cadence half the time. Like, it's a good example. I remember one time I was down at the Comedy Store. We were in the main room, and I was with my wife, Nia, and Brody went on stage, and I swear to God, that fucking genius went on stage and for 10 minutes described his dream apartment. And there was no setups, no punchlines. He was just describing in like this sort of, it was like Zillow speak meets like this amazing comedic cadence. I don't even, and I can't even remember what he said. Me and Nia were just looking at each other and we're just dying laughing. And it was like, ceiling to floor, windows, stepping down into the living room. And when he said that, my wife literally almost fell out of her chair. I know this won't seem funny to a lot of you because you didn't know him, and nobody can recreate the way that guy did what he did. But when he said stepping down into the living room, like, I just put my head down on the table and was crying, laughing at the same time. Also, for the first time ever in my life, noticing how much reverence, if that's the right word, that I held anybody, like any room that you step down into in an apartment is unbelievably classy. And I had no idea that I thought that. And I think the whole crowd, along with me, suddenly realized in that moment that, like, we all felt that and had never expressed it. And Brody had just expressed it. And he acted it out, stepping down, and he sort of crouched into the living room. And it was just amazing, and also too, like, probably behind all of that, underneath was the sadness of like what he wanted and was he going to get it and all of that type of stuff, that was just very relatable. And I don't know, man. It's like I have this this is a weird one where I'm really sad selfishly for myself, but I'm not like, I don't know. I'm not the most spiritual guy, but I feel like, his journey was like complete, I guess. That's how I have to look at it, or else it becomes too sad. And when I really look at how he affected everybody and just the fucking outpouring that was on Twitter, and how psyched he would have been that, that he was trending on Twitter for 2 days now. I don't know. It was really, that part of it was like a cool thing to see. And I tried to sit down and watch that show that he did with Zach Galifianakis. By the way, shout out to Zach for loaning his name to that so Brody could do that show. And it was just too soon to sit there and watch it and watch him struggle. I just can't imagine having a mental illness where you're just literally just walking around fighting your own brain. And the way that he was able to do that and not lash out at other people and just be so kind and so sweet to everybody and just so fucking funny, man. It's like, it's an end of an era in at the Comedy Store. Like there's really not going to be. There was nobody before or after him that was like that guy. And furthermore, he truly, in the purest sense, was a comics comic, where a lot of times that gets thrown around. Oh, this guy's a comic or she's comics comic, and it's somebody that's also selling a lot of tickets. It's almost like it means it's a comedian that made it, but other comedians still like that person and don't resent their success, is sort of the way a comics comic is, sort of the, I guess, definition of it, if the way I kind of see it. But Brody was, he was a comics comic in that he was really for us. Like the wait staff and people that managed comics and people who had watched that amount of comedy to understand how unique he was and how different he was. And I love going on the internet now and all these people who are just discovering him, and some people getting him, but there's a lot of people being like, this guy isn't funny. This guy sucks. I'm sure you guys are sad, but this guy sucks. That makes me feel even better. It's like, yeah, you don't get it. You don't get it because you're not a fucking comedian, and you just have, like, you know, where your comedic ear is, hey, two guys walk into a bar and the rabbi says, like, you're not going to get this fucking guy. Like, you have to watch a lot of comedy to see how funny this guy was. And I'm really going to miss him. And, oh, man, I remember when I was doing, what was it, the Oddball tour. And I'd gone on, the crowd was fucking, it was like, fucking 8,000-9,000 people. And it's just such a rush to be on in front of, and Brody was hosting, and Chris D'Elia was going on next. And I've always loved Chris. Like, he just was like, he reminded me of like a Boston comic, where as far as like he could get up in front of, from early on, get up in front of a big crowd and kill at a level that was considering headlining. The way I learned what it sounds like, what killing sounded like, he was doing. So, he was on his way out, and I was saying, oh, dude, you wait till you go out there. It's going to be fucking amazing. And I asked him, I was like, you want me to take a picture? Or I don't even know if I asked him whatever. So he was walking out, and I wanted to take a picture of Chris right when he got to the microphone, because the lights were up and you could see how big the crowd was, and I thought it'd be a cool thing for him to have and retweet or whatever. And I was just focused on Chris, right? And Brody had done the fucking intro, and I didn't realize he was in frame because I was just looking at Chris to try and frame it, and I I clicked the picture. And I was unaware that Steven did this, with his baseball background as a pitcher, and I forget where he pitched, Arizona State. I think it was Arizona State. I'm not sure. And he, you know that warm-up that pitchers do, like whenever you see like spring training before the game, where they're walking and they put their hand out like straight out in front of them and like above their head, and then they just kick their leg up where their cleat of their toe touches their hand. I guess he used to do that. That was the first time I ever saw him do it. And when I clicked the photo, he was walking off stage doing that, and he had literally kicked. His foot was at the apex, almost touching his hand with his head tucked down a little bit. And I saw that, and I just started, it was just so him. I just started fucking laughing, and I was just, as a comedian, like, why did he do that? Was that for the crowd? Was that for him? What was the person in the crowd as they're watching Chris D'Elia walking on stage, and then in the peripheral, they just see this guy walking off, kicking his fucking foot up to his hand like a spring training fucking pitcher in the Grapefruit League. And for the rest of that fucking tour, when, you get lonely on the road, I would just look at that picture and I would just die laughing. And so many people that I showed who weren't in stand-up didn't understand why. They were just sort of like, wow, that guy can kick his foot up high or whatever. They didn't get it, or it wasn't hitting him the way it was hitting me. But I just, I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say. It's really obviously really sad, but he just was, I don't know, the way that guy touched me by what he did. I have this weird sort of, I don't know. I definitely am really, really sad, but it's not that same kind of sadness. And I'm not the most spiritual guy, but if there's anything, he's there, after this, because, I don't know. I never heard anybody say one bad fucking word about that guy. He's such a nice, and he's fucking hilarious and all that. So anyways, there goes another one. So, I don't know. I don't know. He would get frustrated. I mean, his whole thing is just like, his whole life was like an Oscar-winning movie. As far as the way he battled, like what he battled, and how positive he stayed. And like, I always wondered like what it was like for him to have all like the best comics being like, dude, you're like one of the funniest guys ever. And then not getting that from the mainstream, while, battling all that other shit. I mean, and to not turn bitter and not be a fucking asshole, it's unbelievable. It really is. So I guess now that like his life is complete, like kind of looking back on it, it was weird. Like he was on his, what's that Grateful Dead song? It reminded me of that. You know that song Ripple? Where they say, what the fuck? How does that lyric go? Let me look this up here. It says, there's a road, no simple highway, between the dawn and the darkened night. And if you go, no one may follow. That path is meant for your steps alone. Yeah, I feel like if they ever do like a documentary, which I'm sure they're going to, like that should be the tone, because I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but like, I don't know. What that guy did was just so fucking unique. And there's a loneliness to being that fucking unique. And the fact, like I said, that he didn't turn into a fucking asshole about it and was just so nice and supportive to everybody. I don't know. I don't measure up to that, put it that way. So thank you to Brody Stevens and Brody Stevens, all those fucking times you made me laugh and everybody else. And I don't know. I think for the rest of my life, I'm going to be going, yes, you got it. It just feels good to say it. I mean, half of my conversations I think I had with him, sadly enough, was just me imitating him. He was so fun. I would just start talking like him. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. And there's a bunch of clips of him. If this made you interested, definitely look him up. And all right, I guess, I don't know. Where the fuck do you go from there? Jesus Christ, dude. Like,